Hey free to play gang, welcome back to another video. So today let's take a look at Louis, and of course we're going to start off with his skills, and then I'm going to show you my relics and where I think he's great at. Okay, so here are his skills, and there's a reason why they are not max at all. So I did not even upgrade any of his skills because I feel like he does not need the skill ups that urgently, so you can definitely use the skill ups for other espers that need them a little bit more than he does. Okay, so Phoenix Arrows attacks an enemy 3 times, each dealing damage equal to 35% of attack, with a 40% chance of inflicting Sear for 2 turns. So usually they show what the debuff does, but I'm not sure why it's not shown here. But anyway, Sear increases the damage that the enemy receives by 25%. I do not think this actually affects debuffs such as poisons and bleeds, so it's still going to be a very powerful debuff, especially if you're bringing along some other DPS espers. And next is his passive Unshackling. Okay, so each attack has a 15% chance of dealing true damage equal to 10% of the target's max HP up to 100% of his attack. If a critical hit is triggered, you increase the trigger chance to 30%. So basically you want him to have full crit rate. So I have him at 98%. Definitely I would hope to push him for 100%. So every time he crits, he has a 30% chance to inflict true damage equal to 10% of the target's max HP. And finally, for his third skill, this is Sky Shot, randomly inflicts 9 attacks on enemies, each dealing damage equal to 40% of attack, with a 40% chance to inflict bleed for 1 turn. And what bleeding does is you receive true damage equal to 50% of the debuff caster's attack at the start of the turn. So basically 50% of my Louis' attack will be true damage onto whoever has the bleeding debuff. So simply put, now he has about, I think this is about 3000 attack in total, which means that the enemy will receive 1500 damage per bleeding stack for every single turn that they take. And finally, his Captain ability here increases ally attack in Ritual and Sonic Miracles by 30%. This is quite useful, especially if you do not have a sender. And now onto his relics. I'm using him with Windwalker and Avatara, but you do not really need to follow me that strictly. I'm making him slightly faster so that he attacks a little bit more often, which makes him very useful for the Fafnir boss. And the main stats that I'm going with is going to be as much crit rate as possible. Obviously, if this is a crit damage, it's going to be a lot more powerful. And then attack over here and speed over here, but I think crit damage attack works pretty well as well, as long as you have some speed subs to make him relatively faster, like at least 120 to 130 speed. That would be in a good range. And of course I don't really talk about this before, but here are the ascensions that he gets. So he starts off with 70 attack followed by 950 HP, and then he increases his Unshackling over here, followed by 15% crit damage, 15% attack, and finally another 20% attack. So he has a lot of attack. Now he is great in quite a few places. For example, in the Cube Miracle and Temporal Tower, where their HP is slightly higher than the usual, which is great for his passive, which is based off their max HP. But I don't really use him in these places, so let's take a look at where I use him first. I think it's pretty straightforward that he works really well in the Sonic Miracles because the boss stands alone, and therefore his third skill hits 9 times on the boss. So you don't really have to worry about hitting other adds, like for example in the Ritual Miracles, there are 2 adds between each of the bosses, or rather around the boss, which could potentially absorb some of the incoming attacks from Louis' third skill, and therefore minimizing the focus that you have on the boss. So over here that we are finally facing the boss, let's take a look at his third skill, and you can see just how much damage we can do. And now the reason why I chose not to max his third skill is simply because we do not really want to rely too much on RNG, especially if we are not dealing with, let's say, Sonic Miracles. So like for example in the Fafnir boss, I would love him to use his first skill much more often than his third skill because I don't want to rely too much on RNG. His third skill would on average target the boss 3 times, but that is not very reliable. So yeah, we're going to check that out in just a moment. But this is also the main reason why I feel like you don't need to invest skill ups onto him. But let's take a look at the second place where I think he's great at, which is going to be Apep. Now it's not very typical that you see a Louis used in Apep because Louis deals multiple hits. So this is definitely not a newbie's guide on how to handle Apep using Louis, but more like in terms of mini-maxing and trying to improve on your runtimes, I think Louis can be very exceptional over here. So the main reason why I use Louis in Apep, there are 2 reasons. Okay, so the first reason is obviously his Sear debuff on his first skill. If he lands a Sear debuff on the boss would take 25% more damage, which is going to improve my speed a lot. And of course the second reason is I'm using him alongside with Jacob. And the thing is, the more I trigger the boss to land his attack, the more he will counter attack with his passive, and therefore Apep will suffer a lot more poison debuffs, which is just one other approach of how you can handle Apep. But of course Louis only works here because he is a wind type, and therefore he may not be so useful in Chronos because Chronos is an Inferno type. So that's the general strategy that I'm running him in Apep, and you see that the run is relatively fast. So like I said before, this is just one way that you can approach Apep. This is not the best way, and especially if you're a new player, do not use this as a reference on where you can use Louis. I will cover proper beginner friendly Apep teams, and this is not it, alright? This is not it. But as you can see over here, we have landed a Seer debuff, and the 2 turns is going to be more than enough because Apep is not going to survive past 2 turns. So afterwards, we can just slap him down. And I think, honestly, I can choose to remove Suhua over here to replace her with probably another big DPS. So I think Liling will be fine here, so that will be like 4 DPS in total. Or Lewis, I think Lewis works really well. But I think that's the only way that we can maximize the Seer debuff that the boss has to achieve much faster run times. So I think for the third and final place is obviously going to be the Fafnir boss. So I think in the interest of time, because the time is running short, I'm just going to show you the boss fight itself and why he's so powerful in Fafnir. Now the way Fafnir works is whenever he loses 1 stack of his HP, so he has 5 stacks, right? So whenever he loses 1 whole stack of it, he gains a shield buff. And this shield buff mitigates 12 counts of damage that he receives. So you need to hit him 12 total times in order for his shield to disperse, and therefore you can start chipping away at his main HP bar again. So you have to do this 5 entire times, which is why this is so time consuming. And as you can see over here, the team that I'm running with consists of a lot of multi-hitting Espers, and this is going to bring down the shield really quickly, and more importantly, really reliably. And the thing is, you urgently need to remove the shield on time. If not, when Fafnir's turn comes around, he would almost certainly snipe one of your Espers. And of course, that Esper is going to be the one that was frozen, and is also the Esper that did the last hit to remove 1 whole HP bar. So the reason why I'm running Louis with a little bit more speed and less damage is so that hopefully he does not last hit that often. And the thing is, if he moves a lot more and deals a little bit less damage, he could potentially be a very useful shield breaker for me. So you notice over here that Tang Yun tends to do the last hit, which is great, except for this one instance that Louis became frozen. But that is still the general idea of how I'm running Louis. So I think that's about it, right? I just repeat this another 4 times and Fafnir goes down. But I don't want to go too detailed into Fafnir because this is not a Fafnir video, this is not an Apep video as well. So hopefully you understand where Louis is used more frequently other than just these 3 areas. Like I said before, maybe the Cube Miracle is a good place, maybe the Temporal Tower is a good place because these 2 areas have very high HP enemies. But in terms of PvP, he's probably not going to be very useful over there. And I think there are a lot of better options. So that'll be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe for more Dislyte content. Subscribing is free and you can always change your mind afterwards. And of course, leave a comment below if you want to see another Esper having its own review. Or if you have any other questions or doubts, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. And this has been Free to Play, by the way, and as always, I will see you in the next video.